Springfield's rock station Q92.9. Hey, what's going on? I'm Cruz. And the NASCAR Series returns to Kansas Speedway April 18th for the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series Kansas Lottery 300. And then on Sunday, April 19th, the Cup Series is back on track for the Advent Health 400. It's hard to believe it's less than a month away, but we are so ready. And I'm very excited to catch up today with Kansas Speedway President Pat Warren. Pat, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. How do you get a cool job like being a president of a NASCAR track?
I tell people it's a series of mistakes that NASCAR has called promotions.
That's what I say here on radio.
Yeah, I worked 8 years in intercollegiate athletics after law school, went to business school, came back to Kansas City, worked for Sprint for a couple of years, and then came to the track. And I've been here since 2006.
Oh, wow. So you've been there for a minute then. So what is the vibe like for you and your staff when a race weekend is coming up? I'm sure it could be a little stressful.
Yeah, things are really beginning to pick up for us right now, and our race is about a month earlier this year about 3 weeks earlier, in fairness, than it's been the past several years. And so the challenge that our ops team is facing is de-winterizing the property earlier than we're used to doing. And like with the cold snap we had earlier in the week, we can't do the de-winterization stuff until those types of weather events stop happening. And then, your marketing's earlier, everything else you're doing is earlier, but that's a little bit more routine. I'd say getting the property ready is the harder part and the thing we have to think about more.
When I'm at the track, I always wonder how much work goes in this behind the scenes, and it sounds like it's a group effort for sure. It
is. It's a mammoth effort that happens, especially for the first race of the year, because everything we're doing, we've got to get everything any damage that's happened over the winter, anything that happens. We've got a 978-acre property. And, there's a mile and a half of pavement on the racetrack itself, 3 miles of crash wall inside and outside. All those kind of things that you have to check, miles of wiring, fiber optic cable, all of that has to be working perfectly for the race weekend.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work for sure. But it always seems to be a great day when I'm at the track. So I appreciate what you guys are doing behind the scenes. So you've been there for a number of years. What have been some of your favorite races?
Well, probably the favorite race or the favorite memory I have was 2 years ago when Kyle Larson won in the closest finish in NASCAR history at the track. 1,000th of a second, maybe 2 or 3 inches between his nose and the nose of the second place car. Just because of the iconic nature of what it'll mean in our sport. That was the closest finish in 76 years at the time, 77 now. Probably going to be a while before that one gets eclipsed.
Yeah, that was one insane race. And, the track itself at Kansas Speedway is one that people get really excited about when it's brought up because the racing has been producing some of the best in the series year after year. That's got to be pretty amazing, right?
Yeah, it is. And, our track, it's really a combination of the design of the racetrack, which we repaved in 2012, and we added variable banking. So it used to be 15 degrees top to bottom in the corners at the apex of the corner. And now it starts at 17 degrees, goes to 18 and a half, and then up to 20. And that gives drivers like Kyle Larson different options on where they want to run and what line they want to run. Kyle happens to like to run a high line more so than some drivers. That happens to be, in our case, the fastest way around the track. So even though it's a further distance, he can do a lap faster than somebody running lower on the track in most cases. Again, depending on car setup, other things that are going on, it's not a fixed speed. But the physics of the track are built to allow the most speed at the top.
I always love seeing the cars get super close on that high line by the wall. And then you got cars that are just on the bottom the whole day. So it's really unique how these teams adjust throughout the race itself. I always love seeing that kind of strategy. So for some of our listeners who maybe have never been to Kansas Speedway, they've been maybe kicking the tires, no pun intended, on going, what could they expect April 18th and 19th?
Let me just sort of speak to people who may have never been to a NASCAR race and the specifics of Kansas Speedway. The first thing is not all of our parking, but you can always park for free. We sell some parking, paid parking, premium parking, but anybody who shows up can park for free. The second thing that's great about coming to a race at Kansas Speedway is you can bring in a cooler with your own food and drink. And so, there are some limitations. You can read about them on the website. A moderately sized cooler, no glass. But if you're coming as a family, say on our to our Saturday races, kids under 12 are free. There's 2 races that day. One, I think, is at 11 or 11:30. The other is at 6. You can leave the facility and come back. Most places don't allow that anymore. And so you can leave, you can go out and tailgate if you want to. In our case, because we sit just by the Legends, you can go shopping or go to restaurants and then come back to the racetrack for the later race if that's what you feel like doing. And so it's those kinds of opportunities. And then I would say if you're bringing kids, by all means, bring earmuffs, bring hearing protection. Little foam earpieces are not going to work with small children. So please protect your kids' hearing. It is really, really loud at the races, as I'm sure you experienced.
Yes, I will stress the headphones a lot because the first time I ever went to a race, it was Kansas Speedway. Didn't really think about that as far as headphones and ear protection. And yeah, the track is super loud, but it's part of the experience of going to a NASCAR race, which I absolutely love. Well, I know I've had it circled on my calendar for a while now as the NASCAR Series returns at Kansas Speedway April 18th for the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series Kansas Lottery 300. Of course, by the way, O'Reilly's right here in Springfield. And then Sunday, the Cup Series race, April 19th, is the Advent Health 400. Again, it's hard to believe it's less than a month away, but it is coming up quickly, and we are very excited about it.
And I'm encouraging people to come down to Springfield to visit what's going to be our newest neighbor, Buc-ee's, that's building on land they bought from the track. So the closest one to us is the one in Springfield, and anybody who hasn't been to one, I'm encouraging to make a trip so they get a sense of what Buc-ee's is all about.
That's what I'm talking about, road crew. Buc-ee's, NASCAR, all in one weekend. It's going to be a great time at the Kansas Speedway, April 18th and 19th. Be sure to get your tickets now at kansasspeedway.com. Thank you again for your time today, Pat. I know you're busy, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Absolutely, and I'll see you in a few weeks, Pat. That is the Kansas Speedway President, Pat Warren, right here on Springfield's Rock Station Q 92.9.